How's it going, everybody? This is a Pecan console table I just finished up. What's following is a bunch of footage from building it. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you. Thanks for watching. So the first thing I need to do is get all the bark off. I really didn't know what this was going to be initially. I was thinking a coffee table, but I kind of pivoted halfway through this build because I did not like how it was going together. So this is just removing some of the checking at the ends. I jointed the edge of both of these boards thinking I was going to end up butting them together, but I really didn't like how that worked out. But I ended up using this edge here to measure and get these tables cut into pieces, which will be the next thing that I'm doing here. I ran my circular saw down them and trimmed them into a little bit less than 6-inch wide pieces, basically so all this would fit over my jointer. I could face joint everything, I could edge joint everything, and then run it through the planer and get it all leveled out, and then glue it all back together. I've done this a couple of times. It worked out pretty well, and saves me a lot of time on a router sled. This board had a lot of voids in it. I knew that if I ran it over the jointer, it was just going to splinter and turn into shrapnel. So I put some epoxy in it to stabilize it, just so I could get it over the machines and everything, and get everything cleaned up. It took about 2 days for that epoxy, so that slowed me down a little bit, but it ended up being okay. So now I'm machining down all the pieces, all these strips that I've cut, ran them all over the jointer, got one clean face and edge. Then it's off to the planer. This was the better part of an afternoon. I dulled the knives twice and had to flip them over. Pecan is extremely hard lumber to work with, and it ended up wrecking all of my blades. But then this was a dry fit for the glue up. It ended up being good. I liked the way all my lines lined up. So I glued it together and trimmed the edges. That was the first board. I trimmed the top the same way. And then I started working on the legs. At this point, I got frustrated searching for legs online, so I just said I would make my own. So this is basically the milling process of all of it: face jointing, edge jointing. I ripped the boards down a little bit because I still need to put a curve in them, so I didn't want to get them too narrow. I decided to do a curve for the legs, so I just need all of these to be about the same size. Then it's squaring them up at the table saw. The first one I cut I did not like. It did not come out fully square, so I kind of had to stop and take my time a little bit as I was doing this. Then I grabbed a scrap piece off of a 2x4 and bent it against these two blocks I have clamped down just to get a curve. It's a really lazy way of doing it. Another lazy thing I did here was use OSB instead of MDF or plywood. I would not recommend that. I ended up having to clean a lot of that up later. But I cut the shape out here on the bandsaw. I get it trimmed to size and everything like that, and sand it down, get to the curve about how I like, and then I start doing my layout with it. This first one, what I decided to do was to cut it pretty proud, and then I'm going to use this OSB as my first template. I'm going to get this first one cut out to the curvature of this template. Then I'm going to clean it up and do the rest off of the first piece. It's a little risky because if you mess up at the router table, you mess up 2 legs instead of just one. But I didn't like how jagged the piece of OSB was. It was just, like I said, me being lazy when I was picking what I was going to make the template out of. But here I'm flush trimming it, getting this piece of red oak down to size, and then I have to stop for about 20 minutes, go over to the vise, and take out all of the jagged pieces that got transferred to this from the OSB. Once I had it smoothed out, though, it ended up working pretty well as a template for the rest of them. So these are the pieces of white oak I decided to use on the legs. I'm doing some layout for them, and then I am going to start drilling dowel holes in them with my Jessam doweling jig. This made it really easy, very repeatable. I love this thing. I use it a lot. if you don't want to see screw holes in everything you build, dowels are pretty cost effective. There's obviously some more expensive ways of doing it, some slower ways of doing it, mortise and tenon, stuff like that. But these worked well. I put 3 in each of the legs, and that's going to be more than strong enough for this console table. So then I had to make some dowels over at the bandsaw, and I did a dry fit on it. This was when I noticed that I really needed to trim down the tops and the bottoms, the pieces of white oak. They're really blocky. So I'm just going to chamfer them. I put a big angle on them to bring the sides down, to make them look a little bit smaller, kind of, give them the impression that they're not as bulky as they are. I got hit with a little kickback piece right there. It just caught my shirt, but in the future I need to find a better way to do that. So then I rounded the legs over. I put a 3/8 inch round over on all of these pieces just to kind of soften the edge of them, make them not look so blocky. And I ended up liking just the 3/8. I thought it was fine. I didn't go any bigger than that. So this was me just setting everything together, getting an idea. This was when I noticed that the legs just made everything look crowded, that I really, really needed to paint the legs. My wife made the comment as well that she kept looking at the legs instead of the top and the bottom. The pieces of pecan are supposed to be the focal point of this, so I need to take the legs out of it. But here I am, before I put everything together, I went ahead and put a coat of poly on the top and the bottom just to go ahead and protect them while I'm working on the legs. I'd already put the oil on them, everything like that. I used some centering pins after I drilled some dowel holes here to line everything up. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have attached the legs this way. I should have done a more conducive method for wood movement, but I'm really not concerned that this is going to affect it. If it does, I can deal with that later. It's not really that hard of a fix. So now I'm going to start taping off to do the painting for this. I thought initially I was going to paint these pieces of white oak. Kind of changed my mind on that. But I got to start getting ready to glue this all together. Again, I didn't put a lot of glue on the pieces of white oak to go on to the pecan because that's cross grain. Most of the glue was on the dowels when I actually ended up doing this. Again, if it becomes any type of problem in the future, it shouldn't be too big of a deal to fix it. The rest of this is just some stills that I took through the process of painting and putting more coats of poly on and everything. Just a few random pictures. Towards the end of the project, I didn't get a whole lot of footage because I was getting frustrated. I was ready for this to be done. So, yeah, that's about it. Well, that's the console table in the books. So I think it turned out good. Looking back at it, the one thing I would probably change is I would make the legs from the beginning. I looked online for about a week and a half. Everything was about $300. I didn't want to pay that for a pair of legs for this, so I just ended up making my own. I think it was the right call. The next thing for him is to find him a home. Hopefully find somebody who likes it and get it delivered, and then go on to the next. It's holiday season, so things have been picking up, which is good. I'm glad I'm staying busy. But if you're liking the videos, I'm going to try to keep doing them. It is a bit challenging, but it's exciting. So if you like this, please like and subscribe, and we'll keep going forward. Thanks.